We have a great expert panel that's prepared today for you all. And the session is titled Mental Health in Athletics. Different approaches with the same goal in mind. You will be hearing from an expert panel that will explore the unique risks and challenges for athletes in which they face regarding mental health and the role sport can play in this. So I'm going to turn it over to our great panel that we have, and they're going to introduce themselves, and then we have a moderator as well. I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Ross Niger. I'm the general manager of ticket sales here at CU, and I will let these guys introduce themselves as they've done pretty some impressive things and don't want to botch their titles. So I'll start off.
Yeah. Okay, can everyone hear? So I'm Erin Rubin King. I'm the psychological health and performance counselor here at CU Athletics, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed addictions counselor. And so a little bit about my background. Before coming to CU, I actually worked in more clinical settings. So I worked down at Cedar, which is a substance use treatment facility down at Anschutz, and they have an elite athlete track. So I definitely worked with professional and college athletes that came through that program. I was in the intensive outpatient program there. And then before that, I worked at Eating Recovery Center, and we also had athletes come through. And so definitely a different background than just athletics. And so I think those are two areas that I'm really passionate about, and in terms of prevention and early intervention.
It's mine on too? Okay, good. My name is Mel Strino. I'm a licensed sports psychologist currently working down in Denver at ED Care. It's an eating disorder treatment center for partial hospitalization level care and then intensive outpatient. A little bit about my background. I did my master's in sport performance psychology at DU, University of Denver, way back. And then I went on and did my clinical doctorate there as well, and that's where I started specializing in working with athletes who were struggling with eating disorders or working on recovery from eating disorders. Went out to University of Oklahoma to do my internship and worked in athletics there. And then came back and did my postdoc at ED Care and have been there since. And currently we have a track similar to what Erin was describing for athletes who are going through treatment for eating disorders, and I'm part of that team. So excited to be here. And I'm a Buff alum, so go Buffs.
Okay, this is working. I'm Dr. Annie Leibowitz. I'm the sports psychologist down at the University of Denver in their Health and Counseling Center. Half my time is spent servicing the student-athlete population with really a whole range of mental health concerns, performance goals, injury and rehab psychology types of work, and then the other half of my time is spent with the general student population at DU, which is about half undergrads, half grad students, and then we do the employee assistance program there as well, so good variety there. I was just telling Dr. Ernstrom, who worked with me previously, that getting into sports psychology was a bit of a left turn in my career trajectory, and mostly worked with veterans through my training placements and early career, and last worked with Dr. Ernstrom at the Eastern Colorado VA before going on to DU, but I saw a ton of parallels with really with veterans being these people who have been in these high-performing roles and then feeling like their mental health or their bodies had sort of failed them in retirement, and a lot of times that's what would bring them through the door. So it actually felt like somewhat of a linear transition, just getting to some high performers at an earlier stage in their life. So anyways, thank you for having me today. Good to see you all here.
So I'm Colleen Ernstrom, and I'm a psychologist. I'm actually over at CAPS, which is the Counseling and Psychiatric Services here on campus. And I'm really struck prior, one of my many career paths. I also taught here as a lecturer in the Department of Psychology and also in continuing ed. And so I feel really grateful to be here today because I really have an agenda to see how much more we can interface with each other, because I want to know what's going on with the student athletes, and I want to know how CAPS can really help support what's going on there, so we can be a resource as well, and really outreaching to the community of faculty as well. So I'm really grateful to be here and want to collaborate as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, we'll just jump right into the question. So I was a student athlete myself, and this is just a couple years ago, but mental health was something that was just being passed around, was talked about. As a student athlete, we didn't have the services at where I went to school that you guys are providing. And so it was something that, you got to be mentally strong. I played college tennis, and it was just something that was tossed around, just a thought process. So with that being said, what are some of the risk factors for athletes in regards to mental health?
Yeah, so I'll start. I think that, and we've heard this a lot today, student athletes have so much on their plate, and I didn't realize that until I started working here, just how much their day was scheduled. And so I think that even just knowing that, like, there's a lot of stress that they deal with. They are expected to perform on the field, on the court, and in the classroom, and then also try to manage social lives and all of that stuff. So I think that definitely places them at an increased risk for, developing different challenges with their mental health. Also, I think depending on, what mental health concern we're talking about, there's different unique risks that student athletes or athletes in general face. Substance use in general, we typically see more binge patterns with student athletes than the general population, and that always places people at risk for developing some mental health challenges. So those are, I guess, a couple of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
But also can help them become really successful in being really sick with an eating disorder and other mental health issues that come up as well. So I think at some point today we'll probably get a little bit more into that, but those are definitely just some of the, I think, pretty well documented and things that I see in my clinical work all the time when it comes to risk factors and those who are really predisposed to developing not just an eating disorder, but I think even more commonly disordered eating, which I'm sure we see every day in most teams. So
yeah, it triples the risk of an eating disorder if you're an athlete.
Just playing off this comment about the emphasis on physique and what your body can do. It can be an incredible thing, but when one's identity is really wrapped up in what their body can do, an injury is really different for an athlete. It's a real threat to one's identity in a way that's not quite the same for a non-athlete who's trying to figure out how they're going to do their ADLs, but it's not seen as much of an identity threat.
To kind of piggyback off of that as well, I think the identity piece is huge, and that can also be challenged when there's an injury. It's also challenged when they're leaving and may not be continuing their sport. Whenever they retire from their sport, it always challenges their identity. And so, especially if they haven't thought about other areas of their identity, being an athlete is just one component, and usually in college it's a very large component of their identity. And so I think that when I see people struggling, it's really when that's been challenged.
absolutely, I absolutely support that. That I see more people who are struggling post-career than those who are actually still competing or still training. Often it's hidden as well, but I think it's after the fact that their identity is really challenged. They're faced to think about who they are outside of being a runner or a swimmer, and look at other components of who they are, and that's when a lot of the mental health stuff starts to surface. I'm glad you pointed that out.